Hello, this is Matthew Chan with the latest ELI video update. And I am really happy to let you know that Robert Krausankas, otherwise known as Buddha Pie, is joining me for this video update. So, welcome, Buddha Pie. I'm going to call you Robert, but just simply because that's what I call you all the time. I'm not going to call you Buddha Pie. How's that?
That's fine. I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, great. Can you believe we're doing this in the morning? You know that's like a major feat for me.
Well, yes, I know, because you're more of a night owl, and I'm the morning guy.
Yes, you are.
So yeah, you got whatever works. You got to make it work.
Yeah. Well, we do this in shifts, right?
Yeah, and apparently I've been hounding you, so
it's all good.
That's the word on the street.
It's all good. Well, because since it's really been a very long time since we've done an ELI video update, and it's even been longer since you've come on board late last year. And so this is really your second video interview, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, well, as you and I talked about, you've come a long ways. And so what I want to do is sort of drill you a little bit. How do you feel since I first contacted you, you did your first video interview, and up to today? How's the evolution been for you? Why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, it's been interesting, to say the least. When you first approached me to do the first video, as you know, I was kind of hesitant. It was kind of like pulling teeth at that point.
Yeah, it was.
Even though I was involved in ELI, but I certainly wasn't involved in ELI as much as I am today. And I'm obsessive, and in my general life, that's the way I operate. When I take on a cause, or I get a hobby, as it were, or whatever you want to call it, I jump in with both feet and I commit myself to it. And that's, that's what I've done since we've done that very first video. That fully sucked me right in, and I've made the commitment that I'm going to stick with this, however long it takes, until I start to see some positive changes, which obviously I have yet to see that.
Yeah. Well, we may turn back the clock a little bit. If our viewers haven't seen that first video, you were already quite involved with the ELI Forums. I mean, you were on the ELI Forums so much. That's really what got my attention. I mean, that's why I reached out to you. I was like, this guy, whoever this guy is, he's always out there. He's answering questions. Sort of, you were an informal moderator. It was sort of like something you just took up on your own. Would you like to talk about that some?
Yeah, I started to get hooked. I basically got hooked on it, and you've got your regular day-to-day business to take care of. Mm-hmm. Oscar's obviously swamped, not only with letters, but with his regular practice. And I just said, you know what? I'm jumping in here, because these guys could use some help. And that's basically why I did it. Back then, we didn't see you around that much. You'd pop in from time. You would pop in from time to time. We've seen you more in the last 6 months than we have in the last, year, I would say. And I think that's partly because I hound you and I push you.
Well, for a long time, I mean, Oscar and I are certainly partners on the ELI project, but in our day-to-day lives, it's actually fairly lonely, in that, he's in New York, I'm here in Georgia, we lead different lives, we have different businesses, and of course we would touch base now and again, but really, there was no way he could be in daily contact, and obviously I had my own thing, and I guess just simply, you being around more, you keep me more up to date, so it was easier for me to stay involved, if that makes any sense.
Sure it does. And, I work, obviously I have my own office. I'm my own boss. I don't have to answer to anybody. So, I have the ability to be able to be online more often than most.
What business are you in?
I do, web development, web hosting, social media stuff. I understand the whole copyright thing. I get it. And I protect my IP as well. I just, go about it a little differently than, others.
Well, the one thing I want people to know about you is that you are a web hosting, you do have your own web hosting company. You are a web developer. And so you always tell me how you have multiple monitors and how you're monitoring the situation. And as it turns out, Eli is just one more screen for you to monitor, correct?
That's correct. And I generally have Eli up on one of my monitors over on the side. You go online, you see I'm online all the time. I just stay logged in.
Okay. Now, one of the things I would like to talk about is I know you were camera shy and you were a little hesitant about putting your name out there and all that, but you seem to have gotten more comfortable in the role. Now, why is that?
I think it's just a byproduct. I'm still not, all that comfortable in front of the camera. But at this point, so if my name's out there, so be it. I think it's for a good cause, and it's only going to help me and my business down the road.
Yeah.
Other web hosts are not going to go to the length that I go to explain the pitfalls and the dangers that lie out there on the internet. Mm-hmm. They don't care. All they want is your money. Granted, I want their money too, but I want them to be well educated at the same time.
Right. Well, one of the big things that I've been a big proponent of is that there's no shortage of people who want to speak out anonymously, and everyone makes their choices. But I've always felt that putting a name and a face to a cause is important. And if you have a reasonably good reputation, it puts a lot of weight into your words. And that was a big problem that I saw very early on, even before I started. I said, eventually someone's going to have to come out and, for lack of a better word, you have to be the figurehead. If you want people to believe you, if you want people to rally around you. And so that's why I've always encouraged people like you who are part of Eli, if you feel comfortable. You may not feel comfortable. I encourage you to come out because it really makes a difference, I think, that when people watch this video or when they read our posts, they know who they're dealing with and they know why we're in this thing. And I'm glad you've embraced it.
Correct. And, it's like someone just posted on the forum last week. It seems that the loudmouths, are the ones that, they draw attention, but on the other side, they don't draw the attention. So they get the attention of the Eli users, but the trolls on the other side tend to pay less attention to us because we're the louder ones.
Right.
And I truly believe that because they know we'll stir up trouble.
Right. So back to you again. What I want to talk about, Robert, is in the last, I don't know how many months now. I guess it's been 6, 7, 8 months, somewhere in there, where you had an official role with Eli. What have you noticed as far as some trends or even how you've approached the situation? How do you feel nowadays?
I'm actually, to be honest with you, I think I'm actually more irate today than I was when I got the letter from Getty Images. Most people, they go through this thing, they open the letter and they get freaked out, they get scared, and then at some point, hopefully they'll get angry. I got angry right away, but my anger hasn't really dissipated. It's really gotten worse because I just see, more and more companies doing the same thing. And it's just, it hasn't subsided for me, and I really don't think it will. I've seen some trends. I'm sure you've noticed them as well as others. The letters seem to be somewhat cleaner, somewhat on a nicer,
we'll get into that later. Yeah.
But the trends are the same. They keep pumping out letters. I get a kick out of when I see these letters from the attorneys. I do get a kick out of, most of these attorneys, they've been in practice for 1 year, 2 year. They're just looking at cases. That's the only way I can put it. When I first started my business, I wanted every single customer I could possibly get because I needed to survive. Well,
the difference between you and I when we did our businesses and with these guys is these guys are getting their reputations body slammed very early in their careers, whereas we didn't.
Occupational hazard.
Quite honestly, I think they're stupid. To be honest with you, I think a lot of these collection attorneys don't do any research. They get happy about the 60-40 split, which has been my informal rule of thumb. I'm sure there's some variations of that. 40% going to the lawyer. That's why we see these jacked up settlement amounts. I mean, and so people have this notion that they pay $5,000. All of this is going to the stock photo companies and the photographers, and that's not true. A good chunk of it goes to the collection attorneys.
That's correct. It's just like a collection agency. And I agree. I don't think they research the cases. If they were to do any sort of research, I'm pretty sure at this point in time, they would land on ELI. And they may think twice about, taking on these kind of cases.
Right. Okay, well, I'm going to change gears. Now, one thing I want to let our audience members know is that because we haven't done an ELI update in so long, more than likely we're going to break this video interview out based on topics. So now that we've talked about Robert and his thoughts and so forth, what I'd like to do is turn our attention to another very important phase that I want to discuss, and it has to do with changes in the way we support our users. And to Robert already knows this, so he's just going to jump in and share his thoughts on the subject. The very first one is, of course, the ELI Forums. The ELI Forums has been there since from almost the very, very beginning. We have upgraded the software a number of times, the major update being last year. And it's worked out really, really well. And it's got more traffic than ever. It's a free resource, and we encourage people to register, sign up, and participate in the forums. So that's the free resource. Now, the other part I want to talk about has to do with premium support. The premium support is the defense letter program, which is done by Oscar Michelin, an attorney in New York City, and as well as the ELI support phone calls done by myself. And the defense letter program was a response shortly after we launched ELI, when we noticed that there was a lot of people that might be interested in legal representation. And Robert, I think you were one of those people when you got your letters.
I was, and when I got my letter, 2 quick calls to Getty quickly told me that I wasn't going to get anywhere, and I found ELI, and I had Oscar, he had my letter, my payment information that day. I was not going to deal with them. I knew it wasn't going anywhere, and at that point in time, I didn't have the education. I didn't have anything to back me up, and there was no way that I could have done it on my own. 3 years later, I don't know if I would do the letter or not, because, now I've got a little more education, and I know, I got the winning formula, per se.
Well, just to clarify, I think you would say that even if you did know how to do it, we don't ever try to do the hard sell, but I would say that it was very convenient, wouldn't it? I mean, it was just like it took it right off your hands just immediately. You didn't have to worry about it, and peace of mind.
Yep, it was done. It was in his hands. I didn't even have to think about it anymore.
Right, exactly. So anyway,
it was money well spent, no doubt.
Right.
And not to, like you said, not to do the hard sell, because there's other options besides the letter program. Mm-hmm. But for those that want, quick relief, it's the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's a good value proposition. There's no way I'm going to say to people, it's mandatory, you got to do it, or you're going to get sued and do all the fear mongering that sometimes people might accuse of us. We don't do that. We just say, look, you can represent yourself, but you're going to have to do your homework. So anyway, one of the major updates of the defense letter program happened earlier this year, and it had to happen because Oscar and I had a come to Jesus meeting as far as what we were going to do in 2012. And that was when we decided this was no longer going to be really a charity service. We were going to make this into like a side business. And one of those items was we had to have a better system of handling these letters, meaning that we had to involve his staff members. Because, Oscar really his talents are best spent on representing people, on legal-related stuff, not clerical and administrative stuff. And that's what he was caught doing. People would email him, and it just didn't work out that well, because when he was in court, then things would get backed up. And as you know, back then we put Oscar's email address up. And of course, as you know, Robert, there was no shortage of people, no matter what we say, don't email us trying to look for free time because we're not designed for that. People would still do it anyway. So now nobody's email addresses are out there. Except for mine, but I'm pretty good about ignoring them and punting them out if I need to. Okay, so the defense letter.
The other thing you have to realize too is 3 years ago just the volume of letters wasn't at where it is today. I think 3 years ago when you first started the program, it was Oscar could do that, the clerical stuff, because the letters weren't rolling in en masse. The more popular Eli gets, the more letters you get, and you have to change with the times.
Well, and also back then, we only had a single vendor, which was Getty. Now we're dealing with Hawaiian Art Network, we deal with Corbis, and we're dealing with a whole bunch of different collection attorneys. I mean, right. the scope of what we're covering is far wider than it was before. So anyway, I did want to touch on the defense letter program. Now, one last thing on the defense letter program is we have actually formalized support for more than Getty Images. For a long time, it was just basically a defense letter program for Getty Images. Well, we now have a defense letter program for all the major stock photo companies, and we even make provisions for, side unexpected extortion letters that
right.
Oscar feels like he could easily support. I mean, it's a little bit more than the $195. It's like $250 and so forth, but it's still a great deal. It's still a great deal. And for those of you that are interested in how that works, it has a lot to do with volume. It has to do with the fact that Oscar is so well versed in it, he can move through cases very, very quickly. Versus if you hired a local attorney who would have to commit so much time and resource over one case trying to get up to speed. So that's how that works.
Right.
Now, the other part here is the ELI support call, where you have the opportunity to speak to me. Now, I know I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like to think that because I've been involved with this for 4 years, pretty well immersed in it, I probably, next to Oscar, probably the most knowledgeable person regarding the scope of the industry. And the only reason I offer that is simply because it just, no matter how much I would try to say, go to the forums and ask the questions, and I guess I'm a slow learner, I finally got that there are people who simply want to talk to somebody. They need the reassurance. They just need confirmation. They don't have the time to wade through it. And so, the ELI support call is sort of like right in between, hiring Oscar $195 versus self-defense. They can talk to me. I lay it out. And as you know, Robert, I don't beat around the bush. I try to be diplomatic, but I'll hit people between the eyes if I need to get my point across.
Yeah, you will.
I mean, I don't really want to offend anybody, but I just don't have the time to screw around. So anyway, the ELI support call was created for that fact, and the fact of the matter is, beginning in 2012, ELI has to be a self-supporting entity, or we just won't do it. That's just the way it happens, because after 4 years of this, I mean, I have since long resolved my own problem with the letters, mm-hmm. and Robert, you are over that too. So we're really two guys that could fend for ourselves, even if Eli were to go away. Am I right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but so Oscar, me, and you, and of course our friend Jerry Witt, we all have a certain amount of personal interest in this, so we keep going. Okay, but that's pretty much it as far as the support options. I just wanted to touch that. You can read more about it on the ELI website. Now, do you have any other words of wisdom you want to share regarding how how people can get support, Robert, what are some of your pet peeves, like, for example, when they go on the forums?
oh boy. Well,
I know I'm going to make you the bad guy here.
Yeah, I see that. Throw me right under the bus. Hey, you know what? I can take it. I guess the biggest pet peeve is when you get the new users, and I understand, you're new, but, do a little research first. There's so much information there, and I understand, you can certainly get on information overload because you've got different views coming, different opinions coming at you. Yeah. Most of us tend to think along the same lines. Don't read, try not to read so much into what's posted there, and just, grab the basics, and your answers are there. We certainly don't mind answering questions. I mean, that's what the forum's all about. But if it's something that's been answered, 500 times, dig around. You'll find the answer. It's there. They're there. And then, if you still have questions after that, by all means.
Well, don't you just love the post where they basically come on and they basically tell their story? Hey, I got the letter. Now what do I do now? It's like this open-ended question.
Yeah, I'm to the point now where a lot of times I'll pass on that. I'll just let them go.
Well, I mean, I'm getting to the point I'm just going to cut and paste a link to the little pre-written spiel that I have of getting help with your extortion letters.
Yeah. Well, the other thing as far as the new users, there's a bunch of sticky posts up at the top. They're always there. They're always at the top. That's where you're going to get a good basic start, and then go from there. But a lot of the questions are answered right within those sticky posts.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is the ELI Forums is a database of information, and it gets larger and larger, and people just got to do some search. And one of the things I always say, Robert, and I think you would agree with this, everybody pays in one way, shape, or form, whether you like it or not. They either pay in time, energy, stress, or money. You get to choose.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. And I just assume, spend my time, or spend a little bit of money and no time and be done with it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I really don't have any sympathy for somebody who says, well, I have no money and, and I'm all stressed out and I can't sleep but I also don't, and I don't have time. I'm thinking, well, you better make the time. If you don't have the money, can't help you there, you better make the time. So you just gotta have to choose. So, we're not trying to sound harsh, but there's literally hundreds of these letters going out every month, if not thousands. I mean, between all the stock photo industry, collectively. It's crazy.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to get, I would love to, at some point, to get some idea of how many letters are actually sent out. Just so I could crunch some numbers. I think on ELI we see a very, very small percentage of the letters that are sent out. I still tend to believe that. And we get a good amount, of new users and a good amount of letters shared with us. But I still think that the number is very small compared to the overall picture of it.
Well, I agree with you, Robert. To this day, Oscar and I would always say that the vast majority of our visitors to our website are readers. They're browsers, they're readers. It's actually a very small fraction of people that actually register and then sign up and actually post and interact. So I guess it's always that way. And there's even more people out there who probably don't even know about us, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Yep.
So now, as we wrapped up this little segment, Robert, do you have any other parting words in regards to like the support options or any little tips or any insights before we move on to something else?
No, I don't think so. I think the phone support option is a good option for like you said, for those that just need a little extra hand holding. Or I don't want to say comfort because I know that's not what it is, but reassurance that they're not the only ones. And I think that's where a lot of people feel. A lot of people feel that they're special because they got this letter, and they're certainly not. And they're not alone in this. There's hundreds of us.
Well, there's certain things that I can say on the phone calls and discuss that I can't do in a public forum. And the reason being is that we're dealing with the person's case their circumstances, their situation. So I get into them, and so and also there are things that I know that I wouldn't necessarily post on the forums that I can more freely share with them. So I think there's some value on it, but I mean, it wasn't really designed to be that way. This was a design just because I kept getting emails and emails and emails, you know, and just would never stop. I said, okay, fine, I give up. I guess I'll just make myself available, and as long as they donate to ELI, we'll just go let it be that way. Okay. Yep. Well, anyway, thank you for joining Robert and I, or otherwise known as Buddha Pie, on his second debut, I guess, of sorts. His first one in 2012. And we're going to do another video update, but we figured we would just sort of wrap this little segment up, just so to give everyone a little bit of a break, and you can come back and watch our second part. All right. Well, thank you, Robert. And I'll see you in our next video update.
You got it. We'll be here.